Welcome to Foxfire Focus, the podcast that brings clarity and insight to the industry's most relevant issues. Foxfire's mission is to provide the best service experience in eye care. So, we hope you enjoy what you're about to hear and that this information provides some perspective on the exciting opportunities facing our profession. For more information about Foxfire, please visit us at foxfiresg.com. Foxfire, taking care of your practice so you can manage your patients.
Hi, Tim Nichols here, back with Foxfire Focus. I'm returning with Al Cleinman here at the Foxfire User Group Meeting 2023. Al's one of our featured speakers, and it is a pleasure to have him back on the podcast.
Thank you, Tim. Good to be here.
When we interviewed Al before, he gave us kind of a broad spectrum of his wisdom, and of his 50 years in the business, he's seen an awful lot of things and has developed a real reputation, I think a well-deserved reputation, as the go-to guy for practice transitions, changes in ownership, bringing on associates, bringing on partners, all manner of transactions. And I wanted to talk with Al and get his perspective on some of those things today. So, Al, our business becomes our biggest asset. And we are often kind of careless about how we manage that asset. And that's where you've come alongside so many practices and helped. What would you say to, let's say, at different stages in a person's career? You're at maybe the 10-year mark, the 20-year mark, the 30-year mark. What is your message at each one of those stages?
Good question, Tim. I think the whole concept of business ownership and transitioning starts with the philosophy, if you will, never get into a business that you don't know how to get out of. So for my money, the minute you step into ownership, you need to be thinking about the next stage. And the beauty of optometry is that you can be anything you want to be. I mean, we have solo practices doing $2.5 to $3 million. So you can go about it in any way you want. Number one. Number two, the thing I would say, and I share this all the time, is I'm 50 years working with optometry, but you wouldn't want me to do an eye exam. I don't have the experience. And yet so many practitioners believe that, hey, I'm smart, I'm a doctor, I can figure this transition thing out on my own. And the challenge is that you don't have the experience to do it. You don't have the arrows in the back. So in terms of stages, I would say to you, there's really, regardless of your age, and even regardless of the size of the practice, you want to be thinking about three very important strategic questions. And that is, the first is, what are you really, really, really trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. The second is a transaction, buy, sell, anything having, I call it transaction, anything having to do with a contractual relationship, mm-hmm. Okay? Is a transaction the right way to get what it is you're trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. And the third, really most important question is, are you or are you not partner material? Mm. And so many practitioners that get to a certain stage, and let's use an example. All right, I managed to get to $1 million. So here I have $1 million practice. I've got maybe 8, 9 staff. And I say to myself, well, boy, I need a partner.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe what you need is a good manager. Mm-hmm. That your walls are up, your roof is on, everything's moving. Mm-hmm. The only thing that a partner can really bring to you in so many respects is money. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and maybe that's not the important thing. They generally are not going to, necessarily bring any specific skill to the table because they're young. Mm-hmm. And I would say, well, all right, you need a manager. Who's going to train the manager? Well, me. Well, who trained you? So I'm a real believer that you really have to look at the business in the context of the biggest asset, and that's the owner. It's not the practice. It's the owner that's the biggest asset. And how are you going to move that business forward, and what resources you need to surround yourself with? Doesn't necessarily mean a partner. Now, I'm not against partnership per se, but partnership is tougher than marriage. Partnership is tougher than marriage.
Yes.
And
we've both experienced too many unhappy breakups of good doctors. They like one another. They just can't practice together because of sometimes it's because of the assumptions that they bring to the table. And so what are some of the assumptions that you see doctors bring but never get spoken, never get discussed, never get negotiated? What are those thorny issues that derails deals?
Yeah, one that always crops up is the concept of being partners and, okay, we're all for one and one for all. In other words, you and I decide, all right, we're going to be partners. So we're going to split everything 50-50, equal all the way. And what happens is that as time goes on, that sounds good theoretically, but as time goes on, if we're splitting everything and you're a producer and I'm younger, you're older than I'm younger, all of a sudden time is more important to you than money. And therefore you want to slow down, and I'm a young whippersnapper and I want to speed up. Well, wait a minute. If I work an extra day, I'm just putting money in your pocket. Mm-hmm. So peel back the layer of the onion, compensation systems play a really, really critical role in partnerships, and they're often not properly designed. Yeah. And so that would be one of them. The other is, we make all the decisions jointly. Well, for me, that means it's like politics in Washington. It means everything you're going to do is going to get watered down. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you assign areas of responsibility to the individual partners, okay, you're better with people, so you're the human resource guy. I'm better with money, so I'll be the money guy, et cetera. And you trust each other. Mm-hmm. And that's really the heart of partnership is trust.
Yes.
And so you've got to take on as a partnership individual roles so that 1 + 1 is 3. It's not 1 divided by 2.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Let's circle back to something you said earlier, that a doctor may decide that he's not partner material, and you mentioned he might need to add a manager. So talk about that, please.
I think it's really an Achilles heel of the profession, and that is, I have a very old maxim that I wrote when I was like 23 years old, starting my first business. Hire good people, get out of their way. Mm-hmm. And many, many doctors think in terms of, okay, I have this manager. And whenever I hear that, okay, you've got a manager, well, tell me the history. Well, she's been with me for 27 years. Okay, mm-hmm. So she hires and fires, or he hires and fires. Oh, no. She just manages day to day. Well, that's not a manager. Okay, so the fundamental is an owner or a leader does the right things. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the job of the leader. What are the things that we should be doing? A manager does things right. And those are the two differences. So you want somebody that, as a manager, who's going to take charge and execute the leader's vision. Mm-hmm. It's the yin and the yang, if you will. And all too often, just promoting somebody that's been with you a long time mm-hmm. into that role may not be the right thing. You may need to bring somebody in from the outside. The other piece is a manager that was a peer yesterday and today is a manager. It's a very difficult position.
Yes.
Very difficult, because they're all her, the staff is his friends, mm-hmm. as opposed to holding people accountable and moving that bus forward and putting the systems in place that need to be put in place. Very difficult.
Yes. And I think a lot of optometrists feel that it's necessary they find someone with optical or optometric experience in order to fulfill that role, because optometry is a very unique business, unlike anything else, right?
Business is business, okay? And we love to bring in certain types of managers. One is people from the hospitality business.
Yes.
Okay? There's almost nothing more complex than a restaurant. And a manager from a restaurant, a good manager from a restaurant, is going to be a great manager in optometry practice. Lots of moving parts, okay? But in a restaurant, if you're 30 seconds too long on that piece of fish, it's garbage.
Yeah.
So the management of that process, of those systems, is really, really critical. Yeah. So restaurant managers, hospitality, hotel managers, a lot of moving parts, very good managers. And the other piece is that a good manager has to be a good communicator. We love teachers who come into the profession. People who are teachers, even elementary school teachers, become very, very good office managers and staff because they're good communicators. Yeah.
We started out by kind of talking about transition of practice. How important is that manager in the transition of the practice?
Well, in today's world, shall I say, owners have more options than existed 10 years ago. Private equity is a real option. May not be right for you, but it is a real option. And so in almost every private equity-backed transaction, they want a strong manager, because that's really who's going to run the day-to-day, is that office manager. In a transition, that manager is the kind of the individual that has the council fire, so to speak. They have the history, and they carry that history forward from one doctor to the next in a classic OD to OD transition. So I think managers are very important. Also, just from a day-to-day perspective, it allows the owner to go home at night and not be so worried about the practice. Now, one of the things that we see often is husband-wife teams. And that's a two-edged sword.
Yes.
Because you never get away. So it's, 10 o'clock at night and you're having a glass of wine, and what are you talking about? The office.
Right.
And so I'm a real believer in managers. In my own business, we're really no different than a larger optometry practice. I have 6 key managers, 2 senior managers, and 4 line managers, and I wouldn't know what to do without them.
Right. So would it be fair to say that if I'm thinking of my asset and I want to maximize my asset, and at some point 10, 15, 20 years from now, step away from the day-to-day, that one of the things that I would need to do would be looking at my structure of my business. If I'm trying to wear all the hats and be the doctor, the manager, the owner, and all of those levels that Gary Gerber talks about, that it's just impossible. Have you ever seen anyone that could really pull off all those 3 levels at once?
I hate to say this. I've never seen anyone that is happy doing that. It is possible to do that. I had a client years ago, and unfortunately he's no longer with us, but this individual controlled everything. And he knew the day of the year that he was going to be turned profitable. All my overhead is paid. May 17th this year, all my overhead is paid, and I'm profitable from May 18th on, yada, yada, yada. Unfortunately, he died at 52. So that's very sad.
Yes.
So there's, I guess what I would say to you, Tim, is that every single practice, first of all, if you've seen one, you've seen one. Okay? Every practice can do something better, can be more efficient, can be more effective. It takes, and I'm not soliciting here, but it takes an outside set of eyes
Mm-hmm.
to really see it. Because most optometrists, most owners live like this. You're so close to things.
Right.
And it takes that outside perspective to step back and see the parts and create the vision, help to create the vision. I always say if we can get real clarity on where you really, really, really want to be, and real clarity, no conjecture, no sugarcoating, no BS on where you really, really are, then putting the steps in to get from point A to point B is relatively easy. If we're unsure about where we want to be, first of all, if I don't have a destination in mind, any road will get you there.
Right.
Number one. And number two, if I'm not honest with myself and with my organization about myself and my organization, you're starting out on a soft footing, leaning Tower of Pisa.
Many optometrists that I've talked to they're so unsure of those data points, particularly the upper one.
Yep.
When you ask, what do you really want?
Yep.
You get a blank stare and say, well, I've never thought about that. So how as important is it as we as optometrists just to do some real soul searching and saying, what is my life really all about?
Yeah. Well, we're a good catalyst, a consultant that knows their stuff is going to be very helpful to act as a catalyst to help you get there and ask the questions that need to be asked.
Right.
Tim, what do you want out of life? What lights you up? A friend of ours, a colleague of ours, Gary Hawk and Kathy Hawk now out of Washington. You probably remember Gary was a facilitator for us. They do something they have a program called Clarity International, and he uses the term, what lights you up?
Right.
Okay? And that facilitating that discussion is very, very helpful in understanding where you want to be.
Al, I can't thank you enough because you had that discussion with me and my wife, and you laid out a course for me. You showed me where I was here, helped me understand where I wanted to go there, and we made the journey with your help.
Proud of you.
Yeah, well, I'm proud to be called one of your successful clients. It means the world to me. Al, thank you for your time.
You bet. Good to see you, Tim.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much for the opportunity to say hello.
Okay.